without understanding what your numbers look like, and it's scary because realistically it's going to hold you accountable, the sooner that you can become accountable, the sooner that you can face that reality, the sooner that you're going to realize, yeah, things need to change. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Midweek Modern Craftsman, where for the next few weeks on the main podcast and this midweek platform, we are going to be discussing client control, your pipeline, maintaining those things, how to ensure that you're not getting ghosted, how to ensure that your clients are the right clients, how to set boundaries, when you should walk away from leads, and how can you maintain your pipeline. Today, specifically on the podcast, I'm going to be using a most recent consulting call with the client. This is our second call. And the discussion that we had based on where his business stands and what he needs to do. And realistically, it was a conversation based around numbers, the financials of the business, what the profit and loss looks like, what the employee payout, what the owner payout looks like, but how those numbers really are indicative of who your client is, what type of jobs you should be doing, what type of jobs you should be marketing for your pipeline. So I want to dig into some of those things just with regard to why they're important, what my client provided me in order to help me steer them in the right direction, and what type of information you can get from understanding your tax returns, understanding your profit and loss, understanding the structure of your business and how that's going to dictate the direction that you should be headed, what type of jobs are ideal for you, what type of clients are ideal for you, and how to manage your business to make sure that you're where you want to be. There's a lot of considerations and there's a lot of information there, but what the goal is to simplify it enough to create a baseline so that you can mess around with those numbers, mess around what you're paying people, what your salary may be, and understand really how that dictates what type of jobs you should be doing. Also, just understanding where you want to be from a volume perspective. What type of business do you want to be? Do you want to be under $1 million? Do you want to be over $1 million? Do you want to be over $5 million? And what that looks like from a business perspective, and how some of those numbers correlate to one another, and sometimes they're raising or decreasing parallel and proportionately to each other, and sometimes disproportionately to each other. So I just want to dig into all of this and touch on the conversation that I had with this client with regards to their business, and how you guys and girls can use the information that I retrieved for them, that I asked for from this client, and use it to really analyze your own business and understand how to shape your funnel, how to make sure that your funnel is really leading you towards the correct type of jobs and the correct type of clients. So the way that this started, we had a conversation with this client a couple of weeks ago, and then really for me, just right off the bat, looking at numbers, gross revenue, gross margin, what they're selling, and then the makeup of their company, the numbers just didn't check out. It seemed as though in order to get everyone paid the way that they were structured as a business, that there weren't enough in sales for the amount of people in the business that were taking considerable pay. So what winds up happening, right, is you can't support the structure of the business. So if you maintain that level of sales, that level of revenue throughout the year, it's going to be a concession on all the owners of the business, on the employees of the business. You're not going to be able to afford high-paid employees, which is going to limit you to the type of jobs that you're doing. So you're somewhat perpetuating or exacerbating a condition within your business that just doesn't afford any sort of growth, whatever that growth may be, whatever metric you're defining growth, if it's profitability, if it's revenue, if it's the amount of input that's required from the owner, right? If you want to step back and you want your company to be self-sustaining. So it depends on what your metric is. from a business mentality and understanding that's really important. So speaking with this client, I understand that he doesn't want a huge business. So based on the structure, they have a couple of owners of the business. They have an employee that's been with them a really long time. So I understand, based on his needs and where he wants to be, that it's probably living within that above 1 million, under 2 million, and then structuring the business appropriately to remain really lean, and understanding the type of jobs that you have to do to create efficiencies within your business. So looking at the numbers of the business and realizing I want them to be up above $1 million in sales, just based on the structure of their business. So if you're a one-man shop and you have maybe an employee, or you're a one-man shop and you are subcontracting a lot of work out and managing that work, the $1 million range may be more than enough for you. With being that small, being that lean, you should be looking towards maybe 30-40% profit or net profit margin at the end of the day. So you think you're going to be making a really good living doing that. So under $1 million, that's where you want to be, right? You don't have a lot of sales, so you need to make sure that your profitability is higher than the market standard, than what most people are doing. As you bring on employees, that's going to increase your overhead, and your profitability is going to go down if you don't offset that with more revenue. For us, we have to be careful. More revenue doesn't always translate to a better net margin at the end of the year. So keep a close eye on that, because a lot of times in that $1 million, $2 million range, we can put more work in place. Our overhead goes way up. Our efficiency goes way down. We don't have the systems in place of these bigger companies that are doing 5 million plus. We're not structured to be doing that. The jobs get more complicated. Our efficiency goes down. We start making mistakes. Our overhead goes up, and we're actually putting 2x the amount of work in place to walk away with the same net at the end of the year. So it just doesn't make sense. So I asked my client if he had tax returns. He said that he had tax returns. It would be somewhat convoluted based on the structure of their business. So sent me a profit and loss statement, which is just as good. I can understand the workings of the company, understand where we're leveraging our tax situation, to see what the numbers truly indicate from a business perspective. And as I anticipated, there just was not, the pie wasn't big enough, and the pie isn't big enough for the amount of people who are looking to get slices of that, right? It's business owners and a long-standing employee for this company. So it's going to be bigger pieces of pie for each person. It's not as though you have one business owner and then a lower paid employee, or you're keeping your overhead low and subcontracting work out. So it's a bunch of little slivers, right? You have a few business owners. It's a family operation, and you have an employee who's been with you for a really long time. So you want to treat everyone right. You want to pay them right. You want to have health benefits for them. You want to have some sort of investment platform for them. So as you realize this, you have to understand that based on the amount of sales that you're putting in place, it needs to substantiate the structure of your business. So look at the structure of your business. How are you structured? Are you a partnership? Do you have 2 partners? Do you have 3 partners? Are those people looking to support their families? Are you looking to concede salary for investments? Are you looking to concede salary for capital within the business, or potential real estate within the business, commercial real estate, owning buildings, property, having equity in the business? What's the structure of your business look like? Do you need to draw a salary? What does that salary need to look like from your lifestyle perspective? And understand, again, how many partners are in the business, what the structure of the business is, what the arrangements are, and what makes sense for you. Even if you're in the position where it's like, I don't need a large salary, I'd rather reinvest in the business, you need to take that into account when you're determining your numbers. Because if you're shortchanging yourself on the salary end of things in order to leverage tax incentives and benefits and systems, you still need to compensate that. That shouldn't be an attempt to be competitive. That should be effort to preserve your money, but that shouldn't come at an effort to remain competitive for your job. So in the situation that I'm looking at with my client, they were being highly competitive with their salaries, and there were some concessions on the salaries. They have health benefits, they have some investment opportunities, but the salaries that they were using to generate the numbers for their business, to me, were low. So it just wasn't realistic, and I feel that you're not being realistic. You're making the numbers of your company work based on concessions, and it's unrealistic. It doesn't really open a door for growth or sustainability with your business if you're all just drawing a really low salary in order to make the numbers work out. So on paper, this business made sense. The profitability made sense. The gross profit, the net profit, from a numbers perspective, it checked out. But looking at it a little bit more deeply, and the way that things are structured, I felt that the percentages that we were getting, the margins that we were getting, were slightly inflated due to concession. So my recommendation there is to put more realistic numbers in there. Even if you don't feel that you can get them right now, look at your profit margin, look at your profit and loss statement, look at your salaries, look at your tax returns, and put more realistic numbers in there and see where that takes your business. See how that impacts what type of work you need to sell, how much work you need to sell, and where your business should realistically be without these concessions to remain viable and sustainable. And once you can gain a little bit more clarity as far as what those numbers should actually look like, you can then play with them some, right? So you have your P&L. To me, and this is the conversation I had with my client, this is the most difficult aspect of this. You've done the work, you've tracked the cost, you're looking at your P&L, you created the spreadsheet, you've analyzed your tax return, you've done the hard work. That's your metric, that's your basis, that's your starting point. Maybe for your company, you're making more than you need to and you don't need to work as much. You can use that same baseline to understand how you can scale back and maintain the same level of income, and maybe it's by selling less work and your profitability is going up. It all depends on where you are as a business, what your needs are financially, who you're supporting, the structure. But the first step is tracking and inventorying all of that information, again, through a P&L, through your tax returns, whatever it needs to be. So once you understand what those numbers look like, you can start plugging and playing and saying, hey, I know as the owner of this company, I'm conceding an unrealistically low salary number in order to keep it afloat. Maybe I'm making money elsewhere. Maybe I'm leveraging some tax incentives elsewhere. To me, that's not the way to operate a business if you're working on incentivizing yourself elsewhere. I want your numbers to remain competitive, but I also do not want your numbers to be based on concessions on your behalf or concessions on employees. So start plugging numbers in that are more realistic and see what that looks like based on your existing revenue, your existing sales for the year. You're going to realize that maybe that 30% net profit is actually closer to 15%, which 15% might be good if you're doing $5 million, $10 million worth of sales. But if you're only doing $1 million, if you're only doing 1.2, if you're doing $750,000, now that 15% is not enough. So this is where those numbers, sometimes they raise proportionately, sometimes it's disproportionately. So for me now, this is an example of being disproportionate growth, right? Where it's like the 15% works when you're selling more, but when you're selling less, that 15% does not work. And that's the world that I live in. My percentages, my nets have to be pretty high because I have a low volume of sales. So understand, again, where do you live? What's the structure of your business? My business is really lean, so I can afford to have less sales, less revenue throughout the year, less gross. but I need to make sure that my net margins are considerably higher than somebody doing $2 million, $5 million, $10 million worth of sales. So just get a basic understanding of that and how those numbers either grow proportionately or disproportionately. So for me, if you were to take the existing setup this client had and say, hey, we're going to start putting more realistic salaries on, we're still going to maintain the benefits, we're still going to maintain some of the incentives that we have from investment and real estate, and we're going to put just more realistic overhead essentially through salaries, through payroll, you're going to realize that your percentages, your nets are going to go down considerably, substantially. So there's a couple ways that you can get that percentage back up. If you have a high overhead, if you have a bigger company, if there's fat that can be trimmed away, yeah, you can get that percentage up, those net profit margins up by reducing your overhead and leaning your business out. In the case that I'm discussing, they're pretty lean as is. They're not spending money frivolously. There's not a ton of extra money in the business that they can incentivize that extra money. So for me, just the sales aren't enough, the revenue's not enough. That's the bigger issue for me. It's not about spending less. They're already spending too little. They need to give themselves some breathing room to be able to spend more, to make more. So for me, it's like, look at how do you make more money? Do you make more money by spending less and creating a larger disparity between your revenue and your costs, which is going to increase your margins? Or do you sell more and maintain the same overhead? Or is it a combination of selling more and reducing your overhead or your inputs that are going in to, again, widen that gap between revenue and your costs? So for me, the situation that they're in, it's like they can't get their costs any lower. They're already super lean. It doesn't make any sense to me. You need to address your revenue and then possibly look at efficiencies, and those efficiencies based on what they're doing as far as work. To me, it's like the jobs are too small for the structure of your business. So there's a lot of staging. There's a lot of setup. There's a lot of coordination. It's a lot of inputs going in to manage these smaller jobs, where it's like you're doing a dozen projects a year. I think that you would create efficiency and better systems focusing on 4 to 5 projects a year that have higher price tags. Even if you're selling the same amount of work, there's less staging, there's less setup, there's less breakdown, there's less coordination. You're planting yourself at a job for a longer time, so you're creating efficiencies within your workflow. So that's the suggestion to them. Obviously, I want your revenue to go up because I feel that you could put more work into place with the structure that you have, the experience that you have, the amount of high-level employees that you have. I believe that you could sell more. I believe you could sell 1.6. You might be 1.8, closer to 2. I think once you get closer to 2, you're going to need to really change your business model, and I'm not sure that's where they want to be. So I'm like, let's look on getting to $1.5 million and see what that does for your numbers, because I believe that you have the setup, if you restructure things, to be able to make that type of revenue or sell that amount of work while maintaining the costs that are going into your projects, the resources that are required you to get there. I just think it's different job makeups for you. So right now, again, tying this back to lead flow, you're creating a funnel, understanding your marketing. Right now, you're doing the wrong type of jobs based on your setup. So you're staying really busy. You're putting a ton of work in place as far as the amount of time and resources required to do it. But the numbers of those jobs just are not big enough to support the makeup of your company. So again, if you're doing $1 million worth of sales and you're doing 10 jobs a year of $100,000, that's a lot of coordination. That's a lot of meetings with different clients and doing the dog and pony show and selling the work and coordination and then communication, where it's like, what if you were to do 4 jobs a year at $250,000. To me, the margins on that business is going to 4 jobs at $250,000 is going to go up because you're going to create efficiencies by spending less time and resources on the selling, the dog and pony show, the lead flow, the lead generation, entertaining leads, pre-construction, all of that time and effort and resources that go into that. You have the type of business that can afford to be doing those $250,000 plus jobs. Focus on them and your profitability would go up, even maintaining the same amount of sales, because it's a different job structure. You are now able to self-perform more work. You're able to plant your employees there. You're able to maybe put somebody full-time on the back-end management and then a couple of people wearing the tool belt. Again, making your money through self-performance. You can structure this differently than you can when you're doing $10,000, $100,000 jobs or smaller. To me, that's like, let's bring in a bunch of less qualified employees because we're living in a market that does not require somebody who's making $60, $70 an hour. It's more volume, and it's either a smaller scale job or a lower caliber of project that you should not be having. You shouldn't be maintaining the amount of salary that you are to do or put those jobs in place. So to me, that's the golden ticket here. It's like reduce the amount of jobs that you're doing in a year. Even if you're only maintaining the same amount of gross revenue or sales in a year, you're actually going to be able to reduce your overhead through efficiencies, not necessarily through controlling cost or saying, hey, we're going to get rid of the truck. We're going to get rid of health insurance. We're going to shop our insurance. We're going to get rid of this employee and pay a salary that's 30% less, right? So you're actually just creating efficiencies within your business while maintaining the same structure and the same overhead, just based on the logistics of running more than or less than half the amount of jobs in a year. So something to consider for you guys and girls, where it's like, right now we have too high of overhead for the amount of work that we're putting in place. It's not, the answer may not be, hey, we're selling 10 jobs, we need to sell 20. Maybe it's selling less jobs, it's just a different job, right? So instead of selling just the $100,000 kitchen remodel or the $40,000 bathroom remodel or the $60,000 deck, maybe it's selling the $250,000, $350,000 first floor renovation with the fireplace and a powder room and a kitchen remodel, and then we're adding living space and a deck to the outside, right? So now all of that coordination with that project is now basically taking 4 of your jobs and putting them into one, so that it's one client you're dealing with. It's one setup on whatever type of job software or management you're running. Even if you're not running a management, it's one spreadsheet, it's one job, it's one point of contact. You don't need 3 people. You don't need to sell 3 different jobs and have 3 different conversations going at once. It's one job that you're focusing on. And as far as setup goes, you're now planning yourself there for 3 months. You're not jumping from one job, packing your stuff up, then going to another job, and then to another job, and then running back to this job. You're able to plant yourself at this job and create efficiencies within your workflow, the work that you're putting in place to actually increase your margins. So to me, focus on those jobs. Now that you understand, okay, the jobs that we're doing right now, like maybe we can survive in the $1 million range. Ideally, I'd like to see you higher than that while not increasing your overhead, right? If you could sell 1.5 and 1, and it's the same input required to do that, roughly, minus maybe, a little bit more in subcontractors cost and labor that's going into it. But I would rather you sell 1.5 with the same company structure than 1. It makes sense. Your margin is going to go up. You're going to make more money. But if you can survive in the $1 million range, Maybe it's just different type of jobs that are getting you there, and you're creating the efficiency within the business. Now it's like, I understand that those smaller jobs are not serving us from a business perspective. We need bigger jobs. So now you understand what your job type is. So then from there, you can say, well, what type of client is going to hire us for this type of job? Who are we from a business perspective to come in and be able to offer the services to this type of client? So you can start really understanding who you are from a business perspective, what you do well, why somebody would hire you for these type of first floor renovations or small addition plus a kitchen renovation. Why would somebody hire for you for this? Understand what you do well, understand your company structure, understand where you excel, how the efficiencies of your business are structured for these type of jobs, and then you can understand what this client looks like. You can understand how I need to market to this client at this point. Without the P&L, without understanding your financials, you're taking every job that comes in because it's, I need to make up $1 million worth of sales. 300 are going to come from kitchens, 200 are going to come from decks, 300 are going to come from small bathrooms, and then 200 are going to come from one larger addition project, right? You're able to focus on a smaller amount of work, and you're able to sustain the amount of sales that you need, focusing on 4 projects that are larger scale, increasing your efficiency, increasing your profitability, also allowing you to create systems that these are the type of jobs that we do. This is how we market them. This is how we sell them. This is how we integrate and implement pre-construction into them. This is our ideal client. This is our ideal type of job. And now you just focus on them. You create the marketing to support them. You sell more of those type of jobs. You create the systems that back that, and your efficiency continues to grow. And as you become more efficient, as you're able to complete these jobs sooner, you're able to sell them sooner, you're able to understand like where there's hiccups, where there's aren't, where you can make up time, where you can overlap jobs, you're able to do more work in the same amount of time. So now with the existing setup, now that you've done enough of this and you've gained the experience, you understand the type of jobs and the top clients that you're doing, you're able to sell $1.2 million worth of work and perform it, execute it, put it in place in the same amount of time that you were doing 1 million 6 months ago. And then the next year you're at 1.5. And then you get to a point where it's like, okay, we can handle more work, but we really need to change the structure of the business. And then you can look at your P&L again and assess what that would look like. What would our numbers look like if we brought on another van, if we put another person in a truck? Does it make sense, or does it make sense to work overtime with the structure that we have now so we don't need to absorb the overhead of another employee? You have the roadmap. You have the P&L, you have the tax returns, you have the salary breakdown to understand where the money goes and what it needs to look like in order to support the funnel that makes sense for you and for your business. So again, if you guys and girls are like, hey, we're spinning our wheels, like what's the first step? To me, this is the first step. Understand where you are and why you are in the position that you are. And it's simple. Like it's the most amount of work that you're going to do is to dig into that and understand what your numbers look like. But without understanding what your numbers look like, and it's scary because realistically it's going to hold you accountable. Me asking a consulting client to send me their numbers, like there's a lot of accountability there. There's no hiding. It's all out in the open, and you may hear some truths that aren't what you want to hear, but the sooner that you can become accountable, the sooner that you can face that reality, the sooner that you're going to realize, yeah, things need to change. And it's not a bad thing. It's going to make your life substantially better, but it's difficult at first. That can be a tough pill to swallow. But my advice for you guys and girls is start understanding what your numbers look like. Start understanding the work that you're putting in place and the cost of that work and what it looks like from a profitability, a net profitability, a gross profitability, what the difference between those numbers look like, what your overhead is, and how those numbers work together, and how changing some of those numbers affect your net at the end of the year. And that will dictate the type of jobs that you should be doing based on your current setup. That's going to create efficiency and profitability for your business. And once you get there, you can then decide how you need to change, if you want to change, if you need to at all. Maybe you don't need to, or maybe life changes and you have another kid and it's like, hey, you know what? I need to make more money, or we need to get out of the house that we're in. I need to change my business structure to make more money. You now can create a plan that you have a roadmap for, that just like a construction schedule, it may change day one, but at least you can fall back on that and use that as a basis to continue moving forward. You're not just shooting off the hip. You're not just putting work in place and then selling a job and then just putting the work in place and being like, maybe we made money, maybe we didn't. I paid my employees. I'll see at the end of the year. You're making strong, calculated, deliberate decisions to move forward, and you have some sort of metric to gauge how each of those decisions is affecting your business. So listen to this podcast 5 times over if you have to. I feel like it's jam-packed with information and just a really good starting point for you and your business. But if you want to understand the type of jobs you need to be doing, if you want to understand who you are as a business, what type of jobs make you money, what type of jobs you're structured to be doing to make money, what your market can bear, what type of jobs you can sell, this is the path forward. This is all of the information that you need. Obviously, I'm giving you a high-level overview right now, but this is going to dictate the path that your company needs to be on based on your needs and the existing structure of your business and how you're going to reach your goals, whatever they may be, how you're gauging success, profitability from a business perspective. This is the path forward for me. This is the first step in that. Hope you all enjoyed the podcast. As always, appreciate my consulting clients, not only for their transparency, for their accountability, for their investment in me and what I'm doing aside from or outside of TRG Home Concepts with Modern Craftsman. But it also it gives me an ability to relay real-time situations while maintaining anonymity for these clients, but real-time situations where I can loop them into what we're talking about on the Modern Craftsman end of things and help you, because you can circle back to these podcasts, but also so many other people. So investing in the industry as a whole. So I appreciate anyone who hops on and does consulting with me. It's been really incredible to see how many people are looking for help, how many people are turning to me and just trying to create a simple, profitable, viable business. And it's not as hard as you may think. If you're interested in hopping in one of these calls, shoot me an email, tyler@trghomeconcepts.com, and I'll walk you through what that process looks like. But again, thanks to everyone. Thanks for hanging around. Thanks for listening. We have some exciting things to come. I appreciate all of you listening, all of the support, all of the consulting clients. Again, if you're interested in anything, you have any questions, reach out to me, tyler@trghomeconcepts.com. I will catch you all later. I feel like this was a jam-packed episode. Let me know what you think. See ya.